Well, I mean, I think having an athletic trainer like Gary, that I've worked with since the age of 17, when I first came to the Lakers, you know, had a really profound impact on me. I mean, not just from a performance standpoint, because Gary was very, he was very communicative in terms of things that I should be doing with my body. So he wasn't just saying do this, do that, but he would explain why you should do this, why you should do that, where other options were. And he did a great job explaining to me the ins and outs of how to take care of your body and why it should be taken care of that way. And so for me, that helped me develop and grow to the point where I could start making decisions on my own, in the summertime, and how to take care of my body because of things that I learned from Gary. So it made a huge, huge impact. So, throughout my career, athletic trainers have had a big impact in preventing injury, which is it's hard for athletic trainers because it's on one end, you're trying to get athletes used to understanding how to take care of their body to prevent injury. And if they do a great job of that and injuries never come, then the athlete's saying, okay, well, maybe I can cut corners here or cut corners there. And then all of a sudden an injury pops up, and then you kind of have to backtrack quite a bit. So it's hard for athletic trainers to really get across the importance of doing the preventative things, the exercises, the rest, the icing, and all those things, the stretching. But also from a standpoint of once the injury takes place, making sure you're doing the necessary steps to get back in peak condition, right? Which is very hard because most athletes, we want to jump from A to Z. And you got to do all the little things necessary first. Wow, what advice would I give to athletes? I don't have athletic trainers. Well, I can only speak from my perspective and what I try to do, which is I try to educate myself as much as possible. And if you think about it, it just makes sense. Basketball or sports is, when you're going out there and you're training and you're playing, is simply one half of that. Without your body, you can't perform, right? So you have to make sure you're doing everything and educating yourself as much as possible to making sure your body's at the top, is where it should be in order for you to reach your fullest potential. So that means, now in the days of internet and the access that we have on mobile phones, the information is readily available to you. Simply a matter of looking it up. If I want to know how Gary Vitti feels about a certain thing, how other athletic trainers feel about it, all I need to do is pull it up on my phone and I can read that information. There's videos about that information. So it's available to you. You just need to look. I think we need a more balanced approach, starting from the youth programs that we have. I think now, as parents, we try to have our kids focus on one thing. I remember I had a parent tell me when my kid was young and playing softball, and I asked him what sports their kids play. He says, "Oh no, she only focuses on playing softball. That's it. Jack of all trades, master of none. That is not our." I was like, dude, seriously, she's 8. But it's this idea that if you're going to advance, if you're going to get that college scholarship, you need to focus on one sport. You need to focus on that all the way through. But what that does is that continues to pound the same muscles. You continue to put stress on the same ligaments. And at the age of 13, 14, you wind up having these ACL injuries and all these things that could easily be prevented by simply balancing out their experience. And so, for us, it was fall was football, winter was basketball, spring was track and baseball, whatever. And you had these seasonal things that you broke up, and it gave your body an opportunity to rest and recover. It's cross training at its finest. I think the way to balance it is you don't separate them. It wasn't a matter of me saying, okay, I want to get that college scholarship, or I want to be in the NBA. Being in the NBA was a dream, absolutely. It was something that I wanted at the end of the road, no question. But what I enjoyed is playing, just the day-to-day things. For 1 week, I said, okay, by the end of the week, I'm going to be really comfortable with my left hand. Now, this is my challenge of this week. The next week may be I want to be able to run a faster mile. Right? And so each week it was a new challenge, and then each new challenge led up to the grander vision. And so that's how balance is obtained, is by simply living each day as if it was your last and trying to be better that day than you were the day before. If you look too far ahead, then that's when things get out of whack. Having an athletic trainer there is huge because it helps educate the athlete on how to get to where it is that they need to go. Without the body, you're not going to be able to get these things done, right? So you need to understand how. And aside from the physical standpoint, I mean, they would probably, Gary would tell you that he's actually spends most of his time being somewhat of a psychologist as well, right? Because when you're dealing with athletes that have injuries, and sometimes they'll be completely fine coming back from the injury, but the real damage is upstairs. It's mental. It can't get over it. It's a mental block, right? So, Gary had to spend quite a bit of time talking to players to try to get them comfortable, to kind of step out and not be afraid of what happened, not worrying about the fact that it might happen again. Well, I think the specialization has had a really damaging impact on our youth. I think it's really, and you can actually see some of the results from me and from my generation, because at 14, we were right at the beginning of saying, okay, athletes need to focus on one sport year round. Fortunately, all the way up to 14, 15, I rotated and I played different sports. But when I came back to the States, AAU basketball started taking off. All of a sudden, athletes were doing this nonstop. I didn't have time to play football. I didn't have time to play baseball because there was a tournament every weekend. And I think because of that, you see things like cartilage tears that I've had, arthritic joints, the Achilles injuries and things like that. I mean, those are all buildups from playing the game obsessively nonstop from a very, very early age. So I think if we can mix those things up and find a balance, I think we'll be much, much better off. And understanding that even if you're a basketball player, if you decide to play softball, football, or baseball, whatever the case may be, you're understanding that there are things you're learning in that sport that are actually going to enhance your number one sport. There are lessons to be learned physically and mentally. So you're not just saying, okay, I'm not going to do this. You're learning things from these other areas that are going to benefit you ultimately here. I mean, Phil Jackson used to look for players that played multiple sports. He didn't like players that specialized on one thing, because if you specialize on one thing, your perspective is a very narrow one. You think just like everybody else does. But if you play different sports, you come at it from a different perspective and you have a different point of view strategically on how to think and process the game. Well, I think youth sports, from a bigger context, is actually the mover that's going to move the needle for us as a country. I think there are a lot of things that we're doing that are extremely unhealthy as a country. But I think sports has the opportunity to inspire that movement, because there's no greater example of how to live a healthy lifestyle than athletes, because you have to watch what you're putting into your body. You have to make sure you're taking care of yourself on a daily basis. And I think that will inspire the rest of our culture on how to move the needle forward, which is why I think this program is so very important. The responsibility, we have 2 daughters and we have another one on the way. And I just think that as parents, it's our responsibility to make sure we are educating our children, educating ourselves on how to protect our children and how to educate our children and set them up for success. Versus, as parents, I see this a lot of times where parents are just really hard on their children and pushing them relentlessly. Even if a son has an injury or something like that, they're yelling at the kid to get out there and perform. You gotta be tough, you gotta be tough. And sometimes, parents use me as an example. It's like, look, he played through this, he played through that. You got to play through this. And it's like, dude, hold on, dial back, man. I'm a professional. This is my job, right? This is different. I'm not a 10-year-old kid, right? So I think parents must understand to put their kids first, the kid, not the sport first, right? But the kid first. And I can't stress that enough.